Hello, how is everyone doing? It is your fallen angel back with another video. Today, we are going over the occult anatomy of man, the human body in symbolism. So let us begin. In scripture, we are told that God made man in his own image. It is so stated not only in the Christian Bible, but also in the holy writings of nearly all enlightened people. The Jewish patriarchs taught that the human body was the microcosm, or the little cosmos, made in the image of the macrocosm, the world around us, or the great cosmos. This analogy between the finite and infinite is said to be one of the keys by the aid of which the secrets of Holy Writ are unlocked. So on this channel we mention this quite often. We as humans are a little universe, and everything around us is the macrocosm, or the full universe. No matter what religion you look towards, it seems that it all leads back to the same ideology. There is no doubt that the Old Testament is physiologically an anatomical textbook to those capable of reading it from a scientific viewpoint. The functions of the human body, the attributes of the human mind, and the qualities of the human soul have been personified by the wise men of the ancient world, and a great drama has been built around their relationships to themselves and to each other. To the great Egyptian demigod, Hermes, the human race owes its concept of the law of analogy. The great Hermetic axiom was that which is above is like unto which is below, and that which is below is like unto that which is above. So this concept of above and a below, this is a ideology even taught in the Kabbalah, right? The worlds above and the worlds below. These all correlate with each other. The religions of the ancient world were all based upon nature worship, which is a degenerated form has survived to our own clay as phallicism. The worship of the parts and functions of the human body began in the later Lemurian period, during the Atlantean epoch. This religion gave place to sun worship, but the new faith incorporated into it do trines many of the rituals and symbols of the previous belief. So when we think of these religions that happened over time, it was all about worshiping nature, but in the essence, it was still worshiping God, because nature is God. This is why many religions believe in the sun, because the sun is also the son of God. When they think of Ra, Jesus, Allah, Jehovah, they think of the sun, right? The creator. The building of temples in the form of the human body is a custom common to all peoples. The tabernacle of the Jews, the great Egyptian temple of Karnak, the religious structures of the Hawaiian priests, and the Christian churches laid out in the form of the cross are examples of this practice. If the human body were laid out with the arms spread in the shape of any of these buildings, it would be found that the high altar would occupy the same relative position in the building that the brain occupies in the human body. All the priests of the ancient world were anatomists. They recognized that all the functions of nature were reproduced in miniature in the human body. They, therefore, used man as the textbook, teaching their disciples that to understand man was to understand the universe. These wise men believed that every star in the heavens, every element in the earth, and every function in nature was represented by a corresponding center, pole, or activity within the human body. Now, we could use many parallels, whether we use Adam Kadmon, the ideal vision of the human body, to understand how the cosmos is directly related with the human body. This correlation between nature without and the nature of man within, which was concealed from the multitudes, formed the secret teachings of the ancient priestcraft. Religion in Atlantis and in Egypt was taken much more seriously than it is today. It was the very life of these peoples. The priests had complete control over the millions of ignorant men and women who had been taught since childhood that these robed and bearded patriarchs were direct messengers from God. It was believed that any disobedience to the commands of these priests would bring down upon them the offender's head, the wrath of the Almighty. The temple depended for its maintenance upon its secret wisdom, which gave its priests control over certain powers of nature, and made them vastly superior in wisdom and understanding to the lady whom they controlled. These wise ones realized that they were a great deal more involved in religion than the chanting of mantras and the singing of hymns. They realized that the path of salvation could be walked successfully only by those who had practical, scientific knowledge of the occult function of their own bodies. The anatomical symbolism, which they evolved in order to perpetuate this understanding, has come down to modern Christianity. But the keys to it apparently have been lost. It is a tragic situation for religionists that they are surrounded by hundreds of symbols which they cannot understand. But it is still sadder that they can have even forgotten that these symbols ever had any meaning other than the foolish interpretations which they themselves have concocted. The idea prevalent in the minds of Christians that their faith is the one and the only true inspired doctrine, and that it came parentless in this world, is unreasonable in the extreme. We have to understand that every religion is a history of a religion prior, right? It is rewritten, and these books continuously get rewritten, right? It's not to say that God doesn't exist. God exists within all of us, but it's to understand that the man-written religions have been rewritten over and over, right? Whether this be a sense of indoctrination, control, etc. These writings get rewritten. A study of comparative religions proves beyond doubt that Christianity has begged, borrowed, or stolen its philosophies and concepts from the religions and philosophies of the ancient and medieval pagan worlds. Among the religious symbols and allegories which belonged to the world long ago before the coming of Christianity are a few to which we would like to call to your attention. The following Christian symbols and concepts are of pagan origin. The Christian cross comes from Egypt and India. The triple meter from the faith of the Mithraism. The shepherd's crook from the Hermetic mysteries in Greece. The Immaculate Conception from India. The Transfiguration from Persia, and the Trinity from the Brahmins, Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma. The Virgin Mary is the Mother of God, is found in a dozen different faiths. There are over 20 crucified world saviors. The church steeple is an adaptation of Egyptian obelisks and pyramids, while the Christian devil is the Egyptian Typhon, with certain modifications. So what we have to recognize is religions in general, right? Even Abrahamic religions are stemming off religions prior. And these religions prior were stemming off the ideology of nature, right? And everything ties into nature and man. This connection between man and the outside world, right? And this inner self. The deeper one goes into the problem, the more he realizes that there is nothing new under the sun. Specifically under the sun. A truly sincere study of the Christian faith proves beyond all doubt that it is the evolutionary outgrowth of primitive doctrines. There is an evolution in religion as well as in physical form. If we accept and incorporate into our doctrines the religious symbolism of nearly 40 peoples, it behooves us to understand that, at least in part, the meaning of the myths and allegories which we borrow, lest we be more ignorant than those from whom we secure them. This brochure is devoted to the problem of explaining the relationship existing between the symbolism of the ancient priests and the occult function of the human body. We must first understand that all sacred writings are supposed to be sealed with 7 seals. In other words, it requires 7 complete interpretations to understand fully the meaning of these ancient philosophic revelations, which we have liked to call Holy Writ. Scripture is not intended to be historical. Those who understand its literal meaning understand least of its meaning. It is well known fact that Shakespeare, for dramatic reasons, brought together in his plays characters who had actually lived hundreds of years apart. But Shakespeare was not writing history, he was penning drama. The same is true of the Bible. Scripture leaves historians hopelessly involved in self-contradictory chronological tables, where the majority of historians will remain until the judgment day. Scripture furnishes excellent subject matter for debates, and also ground for hair-splitting over the meaning of the terms and probable locations of unknown cities. Many of the biblical landmarks are now pointed out by guides were named hundreds of years after the birth of Christ by pilgrims who suspected them of occupying sites somewhere near those mentioned in the Bible. All this may prove convincing to some, but to the thinker, it is a conclusive evidence that history is the least important part of Scripture. When the Empress Helena, mother of Constantine the Great, visited Jerusalem in 326 AD, she discovered that not only all traces of Christianity had already been lost, but that a temple dedicated to the goddess Venus stood on the hill now, accepted as Mount Calvary. Less than 400 years after the death of Christ, there was apparently no one in the Holy Land who had ever heard of him. This does not necessarily imply that he never lived, but it certainly does indicate that the halo of miracles and supernatural atmosphere with which modern Christianity envelopes him are largely mythological. Take all other religions. The Christian faith accumulated a weird collection of fantastic legends, which are its worst enemy, for they have taken the simplest moralist of Nazareth, the man who loved the fellow creatures, and built around him a superstructure of idolatry, which loves no one and serves only itself. As Buddha in India merely reformed the Brahman concepts of his day, so Jesus reshaped the faith of Israel and gave to his disciples and the world a doctrine based upon that which he had gone before, but remodeled to meet the needs of the people who surrounded him and the problems which confronted the Jewish nation. The essences who educated Jesus were of Egyptian or Lilu origin, and his faith incorporated the best of that which had gone before. The records preserved of him are largely allegorical, and the simple man is plunged by them into a great sea of supernaturalism. This was not entirely without purpose, however, for Shakespeare took license with history in order to present essential truths, so it seems the historians of Jesus used the character of the man as the groundwork of great drama. He became the hero of a seven-sealed story, and those Christians who have studied symbolism can gain from the story the key to the Christian mysteries. They will then realize that Scripture is perpetual history, that it pertains to no nation or people, but is the story of all nations and peoples. It is a wonderful thing, for example, to study the life of Christ in the light of astronomy, for he becomes the sun, and his disciples the 12 signs of the zodiac. Among the constellations, we find the scenes of his ministry, and in the procession of the equinoxes, the story of his birth, growth, maturity, and death for men, or better known as the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Again, the tortured chemicals in the retort further reveal to us the life of the master, for with the key to chemistry, the scriptures became another book. In this particular work, however, we can only concern ourselves with the relationship of these allegories to the human body. We discover that the life of Christ, as found in the Gospels, have been conventionalized until it agrees perfectly with the lives of dozens of world saviors. For all of them are also astronomical and physiological myths. All of these myths come to us out of the most remote antiquity, where the primitive races used the human body as a symbolic unit, and the gods and the demons were personified out of the organs and functions of the human body. Among certain Kabbalistic writers, the Holy Land is mapped out on the human body, or Adam Kadmon, and the various cities are shown as centers of the consciousness in man. There is a wonderful study here for those who will investigate deeply and sincerely the ancient mysteries. We cannot hope to cover all ground, but if you can gain from this a key to the situation, we hope you will pursue the line of thought until you have made it all-inclusive and open at least one seal of the book of divine revelation. So guys, this has been the Occult Anatomy of Man, the human body and symbolism, With that being said, feel free to like and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below. Check us out on Patreon, Rumble, Twitter, Instagram, things of that nature. This has been your fallen angel, and I am out.